It's Women's Month and time to celebrate and honor the courageous women who marched against the extension of past laws to women almost 70 years ago. Now, decades later, women of this country continue to face a number of challenges. Tonight, we look at infertility and how that affects women who battle to fall pregnant. To help us discuss this, I'm now joined by Alucia Mabunda, who's the author of the book, The Quest for a Child. Alucia, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this evening. Now, you battled 7 years of infertility, but not only that, it was a struggle within the workplace and trying to navigate. I mean, you're a campus head at an institution of higher learning. Talk to us about some of those obstacles, the biases and the misconceptions that you encountered in the workplace during this time.
Thank you so much, and good evening to all the viewers, and obviously a happy Women's Month to all the South African women and all other women around the world. Infertility is a thorn that is living amongst many of the women. And I mean, I was looking at the statistics currently, 1 in every 6 women of a reproductive age are really struggling with infertility. And when you're in the workplace, I mean, there are set times that you're expected to be at work. There are set targets that you're expected to meet and objectives that you must achieve within that institution. And what happens is if you are undergoing infertility challenges or treatment, you will need a lot of time off to attend to the needs of the medications and the treatments that you're undergoing. And that really becomes difficult because you have to meet your expectations at work. You are dealing with an issue that is stigmatized, that is not so easy to discuss with anyone, for some people, not even their supervisors, so that they can be able to arrange for time off. So it was very difficult. However, what made it easy for me was the fact that I communicated. I communicated that I'm currently undergoing treatment. This is what I'm going through. And most of the time you would find that when I was doing my IVF cycles, I would arrive at work an hour later. So it's just a matter of managers and workplaces being flexible in what they do. And obviously that does not save you from the comments of colleagues and the people that you work with, or personal questions about why don't you have children? Do you have children? Do you want to have children? Or people speaking about their own families in your presence.
I can imagine what a difficult time that must have been. I mean, you speak of communication and how you were outright with those that work with you. Just talk to us about then the impact this had on your career, on your professional aspirations, and how you advocated and navigated the space.
In my career, it was very difficult. I mean, being in a managerial position, you are expected to lead, but while you are leading, and I must say I was still doing that quite well, but the truth is, after that episode of being in the workplace, I would be back to my reality that I'm dealing with, to say I'm undergoing treatment, and the treatment is harsh on its own on your body. It works on your moods, it works on your emotions, and I'm talking injections that you need to inject yourself on around the belly area all the time and constantly. So it was very difficult. At some point I collapsed during a morning briefing meeting because it had just been too much for my body to take in with everything that was happening. But, you know, you need the job at the same time. Infertility is expensive. The treatment is very expensive. So you cannot afford to lose your job. If you lose your job, how are you going to pay for that treatment? It was very harsh. I remember one point, I was trying to make copies for students, and one man, a very old man, he came up to me and he said, how many children do you have? And I said, I don't have any. And he's like, but then your husband is going to leave you. I said, well, that is for him to decide. And I mean, this is just an old man at work. How do you come up to me and say something so insensitive? I'm already dealing with my pain. You now going so deep into my personal life and even knowing if my partner will leave me or not for not bearing children was really And these are things, these are comments that people make in the workplace. Some of them are not intentional. Maybe someone comes up and says, oh, my child, I wish I didn't have this child. And for someone who doesn't have a child to hear someone saying that, it's just a dagger in their hearts.
Right. I mean, you speak of that experience with that elderly man who said what he said to you. How do you find that in many of the spaces on a cultural basis, we interact with infertility differently? Do you find that some spaces and some cultures are able to be more sensitive and supportive and understanding of such a situation?
I can tell you without doubt, when I was going through infertility, I so wished I was white. And that is because I think maybe they handle it better than us. I mean, the Black community, we are still struggling. No one understands. You go back to the village, an old grandmother who's not even related to you will ask you that you've been married for quite a while. Where are the kids? We want children. Everyone feels entitled. Everyone wants a piece of you. Everyone can comment about you not having children. And it is still a challenge to date. And there's still a lot of people that are being asked those questions. I was at some point pierced in my tummy, during a family funeral. One of the aunties just came through and touched me on the stomach and said, oh, I thought you're pregnant. And actually, I was a bit bloated because I was taking infertility treatment that made me to look or appear pregnant, according to her. But I mean, what gives you the right to touch somebody in that way? So it also has to do with being spiteful. But at the same time, I cannot put aside that people maybe are not knowledgeable. And that is why we're saying, let us talk about these issues, especially during such a critical month for women, so that people know about these issues and they can be more sensitive in how they speak to other people.
Of course. I mean, taking it back to the workplace, you speak of people being more sensitive. If you find someone who is a colleague that wants to be supportive but does not know how to go about it, what advice would you have for them?
Sorry, so this person is looking for support or undergoing infertility challenge?
No, this is a colleague that's looking to support someone who's going through infertility issues. How would you advise them to be supportive without being insensitive?
Okay, now that is quite simple. You only tap into the space that the colleague is willing to tap into. So you would need, when you support someone, you need to listen and be there to show them that you care and you understand what they are going through, but without you going into details. So you always limit what you ask from your side, but rather allow them to speak to you. So let's say for myself, I'm a campus head at Rosebank College, and there's someone who comes to me and says, I'm going through this. So the least I can do would be to find out, are the days that you might need to come in a little bit later, and we can work around as an institution to have support sessions and be more sensitive when we celebrate days like your Mother's Day, to make sure that we don't define it inside the confines of just being a mother because you've given birth to children. So when you support a colleague, you do not ask too much. You avail yourself. You give them that hug. You give them that love, but you always allow them to offload to you so that they can only go into spaces that they feel comfortable going into. When you ask too much, you can easily trigger a person.
That's very important. Now, you're an author, The Quest for a Child, a story of hardship, resilience, and faith. How did you channel your experiences with infertility and navigating the workplace into your creative work and this literary project?
I realized that I needed to pen down everything, because the book itself, it takes you through my life from the time that I started struggling and how I persevered. And that is, it also takes you through the stages of my career growth, that amidst all the challenges that I was going through, I was able to progress in terms of my profession and still be able to also progress in my in my career and also educational qualifications. So the story is meant to encourage women to say, not everything should be falling apart all at a go. If there's something that is not working out, you still have a responsibility to work on other aspects of your life and ensure that you are at least succeeding in something, and eventually, even that which you are struggling with, eventually an answer comes through. So I'm sharing that story to show them that I have been in all these different contexts. I've been in the workplace while I was going through this. I have been in this role, but I was able to manage my life and keep it together despite being difficult. And I don't hide anything. I don't hide those days where I felt like giving up. I don't hide those days that I felt like just running away.
Lastly, Alucia, how do you see the intersection of fertility issues, gender dynamics, workplace culture that's shaping women's experiences and choices, and also the opportunities that they have in the professional world? But most importantly, what changes would you like to see in policy and cultural shifts that create a more supportive and inclusive, and most importantly, an empowering environment for women that are going through fertility issues?
Firstly, I would like to see some policies that make provision for timed leave for people undergoing IVF cycles or fertility treatment. For instance, you would know that you don't necessarily need to be out the whole day to go for a checkup. You would need maybe 2 hours in the morning. So instead of having, because some people might be dealing with, not every managers like your Rosebank managers who maybe might say, okay, fine, we'll allow you to come in a little bit earlier or later in the day. So if we can have policies, and obviously you would need as an employee to show evidence that I am going through this and I need 2 hours in the month of August, where I'll be going through the cycle of IVF, and you can take leave and maybe accumulate it without it touching on your normal annual leave or any other kind of leave, because I cannot even treat it as a sickness, because it would take off a lot of your time that you would have from your work. So I would really love to see that happening. I would really love to see workplaces inviting speakers like myself, also medical experts, whenever we are having wellness days, when we are having talks around issues surrounding women, and
Right.
just yeah.
Being with and giving such advice. Thank you so much, Alucia, for your time and most importantly for sharing your experience with us. We certainly do hope that more Mbogotos such as yourself are able to share, and so that other women can know what journey to expect and be able to come out of a dark tunnel such as that, like you did. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. That was Alucia Mabunda, who's an author for Quest for a Child, talking to us about infertility issues within the workplace. Well, that's how we wrap up this hour of Newsfeed PM. Do stay with us. We'll have your headlines at the top of this.